It's great that we have Traefik set up, but it's kinda useless by itself. It needs some configuration so that it can proxy requests to the appropriate services. If you remember, in order to access the iRedMail admin page, I had to edit this URL and replace the domain name mail.do-p.com with the private IP of the LXC, because there was nothing listening on port 443 on the public interface. We have Traefik now, but if I try with the domain name again, it still won't work, because Traefik has no idea what mail.do-p.com is, so let's go and fix that. For LXC, we need to use a so-called file provider. Let's open mail.yml inside Traefik configs directory, but before I do that, how do I know it's called configs? Well, if we take another look at the docker compose.yml, we'll see that I've set up a file provider directory that is /configs, and that down here in volumes, I'm mounting the directory named configs on the host, that will be this directory configs here, to the /configs inside the container, which Traefik will then be able to read. Let's open the file now. We first define a router, which will be named mail, and it must satisfy this rule, so host must be mail.do-p.com. For TLS, Let's Encrypt will be certificate resolver, and this router will point to a service also named mail. Entry points must be HTTPS, and I'm adding this middleware, mail whitelist. Then we define this middleware, and this will allow only those with the WireGuard set up to access this. Note that this is just for the iRedMail admin page. It's not related to sending or receiving email. Email is SMTP and IMAP, this is HTTP. And then I define this service named mail. Note that this service name must match the service you call from router. And I point it to the private IP of the LXC, where iRedMail's Nginx will finally serve the request. Save the file and run Ansible again. Ansible has finished, and if I check the Traefik's dashboard again and click here on HTTP, I will see a new rule for host mail.do-p.com, and in it I will see a router, a middleware, which will allow only those with WireGuard set up to access this page, and a service, which will forward the request to the Nginx inside the iRedMail LXC. Now, if I try again to open the mail.do-p.com/iredadmin, Traefik knows what to do, and I can access the admin page. We'll do the same thing for Zulip now. Zulip is also inside the LXC, so we need another file provider. Now open zulip.yml inside Traefik configs directory, and if this file looks familiar, that's because it's mostly the same. Where it used to say mail, now it says Zulip, and the IP is different because it's a different LXC. As for middleware, even though the rule is the same, I'm using a different name. That way, if I wanted to allow some other subnet to access this, I can do that without compromising the middleware used for iRedMail. You usually want to separate these kind of things. And if you want that your Zulip be accessible from the public, remove the middleware. Save the file and run Ansible again. Ansible has finished, and there is a new entry in Traefik dashboard, zulip.do-p.com. Now I can go and remove the entry from the etc hosts file, which will make my browser resolve this domain using DNS. Open etc hosts, remove the line, and save the file. In browser, when I now go to the zulip.do-p.com, it will first resolve this to a public IP address. It will reach Traefik, which has a router, then the middleware, and finally the service. If I now log in, we can see that it works. Now we have Traefik set up with both of our LXCs covered using the file provider. As for Traefik, I'd be surprised if there's anything else to be added via Ansible. Instead, when we deploy Docker containers, we'll add labels to them, and Traefik will automatically scan those labels and add them to its config. So what you need to remember is that there's nothing on the VPS that actually listens on ports 80 and 443. Those requests are routed to the Traefik, and then Traefik makes a decision what to do with that request based on which host is in the request's HTTP headers. At a lower level, it looks like this. On the VPS, if I list the IP tables rules in the NAT table, the pre-routing chain has rules for SMTP and IMAP. So if the incoming packet is mail related, it will be routed to the IRED mail LXC. But if it's not, it will go to the Docker chain. Here in Docker chain, when Traefik container was started, these two rules were added. And let me increase the font so that you can see properly. So anything that comes on port 80 or port 443 will be routed to the Traefik container. This happened because of that ports section in docker compose.yml.